If the president does choose to implement any tariffs against Canada, we're ready with a response, a purposeful, forceful, but reasonable, immediate response.
For decades, relations between Canada and the United States were seen as a model of close cooperation. From auto parts to aluminium, from forest products to dairy, trade across the border was a smooth, everyday occurrence, and the bond between the two nations was considered rock solid. Now, however, President Donald Trump's harsh and unpredictable tariffs are creating deep uncertainty in Canada. On one hand, he continues to threaten heavy tariffs on key sectors such as oil, steel, aluminium, and agriculture. And on the other, he has already made several attempts to do so. Recently, Trump reaffirmed his commitment to imposing tariffs on Canada. In response, Canada has pushed back, declaring, "We will not surrender."
We won't relent until tariffs are removed and, of course, everything is on the table.
As the largest supplier of crude oil to the United States, exporting up to 4 million barrels a day, Canada is already exploring alternative options. At this point, the idea that Canada could turn to China or the European Union instead of the United States no longer seems far-fetched, especially with projects like the Trans Mountain Pipeline underway. Reports that tankers leaving the port of Vancouver are heading for markets in China and Japan have already set off alarm bells in Washington. There's growing talk that if Trump's trade threats persist, Canada may swiftly shift to what's been referred to as the third option. But what will this change? Canada's oil exports, which are heavily dependent on the United States, are now dangerously at a strategic crossroads. The country, which has long since supplied 90% of its daily oil flow to the United States, has gained access to the Pacific coast with the expansion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Crude oil transported through the pipeline can now be shipped by tankers across the ocean to China and other Asian refineries. In fact, a few years ago, such a scenario would not have been taken too seriously because it was not easy to find an alternative to Americans' market advantage and logistical convenience. However, data from the China Institute shows that half of all exports through Vancouver go directly to China. This prospect means that Canada can afford to pose the question, is the United States willing to lose it as a major trade partner? In practical terms, Canadian crude oil could become more expensive under Trump's tariff rhetoric and much more attractive to the Chinese market. That is why some in Canada are warning the USA that if they impose unilateral pressure on Canada, they will seek new trade deals with countries such as China. Some analysts in the United States say that the Trump tariffs are not without potential issues for the United States. Although some say that the tariffs are designed to protect industries, in practice, they disrupt supply chains and leave consumers with more expensive products. Furthermore, higher costs for Canadian oil or metals could lead to more sweeping disruption for the United States in the global arena. And China, with its large consumer market, could be an alternative trading partner for Canada. With China able to buy crude oil from Canada, refine it in Chinese refineries, and then place this on the global market. This is how the pendulum of trade works. If one side unnecessarily closes doors or inflates costs, the other side looks for new options. Canada's Trans Mountain Pipeline is a case in point, and this is just the beginning of what could be a big strategic move for Canada. Canada's approach with China could open the door for larger trade deals and echoes what used to be called the third option, an approach to break away from the American economy and deepen cooperation with other trading partners. There was a similar debate within Canada several years ago. At the time, the so-called third option policy aimed to break Canada's overdependence on the United States. Under pressure from President Donald Trump, this debate is reigniting, and it is not only China that is an option. The European Union is also a potential trading partner on the table. The comprehensive economic trade agreement between Canada and the European Union has already brought tariffs between Canada and the European Union close to zero. Yes, the geographic distance is a big handicap, but Canada's position is clear, and they believe that they can overcome the difficulties and persist in trading with the European Union and Asian markets so that their options are not constrained, their hands are not tied by the United States government's policies. And Canada does have leverage at the trading table. Think about it. The United States imports about half of its crude oil from Canada, and most of it is heavy crude. If President Donald Trump wants to bring Canada to its knees with tariffs, Canada can say there are other buyers for its oil, and among those buyers, as aforementioned, China seems to be the most prominent. There have even been reports that Canadian oil will create new opportunities for the Chinese market. What this means is that if the United States refineries have to buy Canadian crude oil at a higher price, they will lose their competitiveness, and Chinese or European Union refineries can gain more advantageous prices and increase their share in the world's oil market. Canada's potential ability to move away from the unstable proposed tariffs that would be imposed by the United States and hold on to a giant market like China or the European Union has led many experts in Washington to say that Trump's policy could backfire. The fact that the two sides are at such a sharp crossroads is fueling the anger of politicians in Ottawa who insist that Canada is not a submissive nation. And Trump's threats are perceived not only as an economic problem, but also as an attack on decades of neighbourly ties. Some members of the public have also reacted to the rhetoric from the United States towards Canada, not only in relation to trade and tariffs, but also in relation to comments relating to Canada's sovereignty as an independent nation versus the 51st state of the United States of America, with Canadian fans even booing the United States national anthem at some sporting events. In this sphere, Canada feels obliged to take serious steps, not only in relation to the Trans Mountain Pipeline, but perhaps also the East or Northern Gateway as well. Even though there are obstacles such as resistance from environmental groups, objections from Indigenous communities, and state-federal conflicts, the possibility of building new pipelines is being floated, with the argument that Trump's forced us to do it. Maybe it will not come as a complete revelation, but there is serious discussion in Canada about the idea that they need more coastal access to Asia with more tankers. Of course, these plans are all on the table, but it is clear that they will not be easily realised. Global oil markets remain volatile, the economy is slowing, environmental backlash is strong, and logistical costs are high. But for Canada, the price of being stuck with the United States without alternatives could also be high. Whilst the ties between the two countries cannot be broken so easily, there are increasing efforts to weaken America's bargaining chips. This is precisely where the question, what will Trump do, comes into the fold. Although the United States president has temporarily suspended the tariffs, he is eager to bring them back to the agenda at any time. This uncertainty leads to the increased importance of third options. As a result, this uncertainty leads us to the question, will Canada and the United States' great economic bond be shaken beyond repair? That being said, the geographical and logistical advantages the United States has means that it still may remain the most profitable market for much of Canada, and therefore alternative trade agreements for crude oil with China and the European Union may be Canada's attempt at ensuring they are able to negotiate with the United States and keep the tariffs at bay, rather than to end trade with the United States altogether. Consumers may also pressure the government to not raise the price of gasoline or produce because of the tariffs. Subsequently, both sides may make some concessions and find the best solution that provides wins on both sides, as a trade showdown could affect not only Canada or the United States, but also global oil markets and even European and Asian refineries. Once again, the world is being rocked by the powerful trade disputes. At the end of 30 days, President Donald Trump will announce the United States will unsuspend the tariffs on Canada. And who knows, if Canada may say that they are signing a huge new oil deal with China, when that day comes, The flames of the trade could possibly burn the economies of both countries, but we hope not. Some analysts believe that they will agree terms rather than negatively affect their economies drastically. Nevertheless, this uncertainty increases the anxiety in the markets. What do you think? Can Canada export significant amounts of oil to China or the European Union as an alternative to the United States? Or will the geographical and political realities prevent this? Will President Donald Trump's tariffs really create a painless outcome for the United States? Or is losing Canada a much greater cost to the country? Please share your views with us and do not forget to like, comment and subscribe and turn your notifications on. How the energy chess game is resolved will determine the future of not only the two countries, but also the global trade balance. We'll see you in our next video. Bye.